Thank you for coming. The goal of the Tennessee Teacher of the Year program is to recognize and celebrate the wealth of excellent teachers that exist across the state. We applaud teachers who devote their professional lives to enriching the lives of Tennessee students and who demonstrate exceptional gains in student achievement. This webinar will provide an overview of the Tennessee Teacher of the Year selection process and benefits of participation. We will close with a discussion with a former Tennessee Teacher of the Year, Ms. Cammie Lunsford, and there'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions. The Teacher of the Year guidebook for applicants will guide our conversation. It can be found on the Educator Recognition page, and I'm going to put it in the chat as well if you would like to save it for yourself. By the end of this webinar today, you should be able to identify the benefits of participating in the Tennessee Teacher of the Year program and understand the phases of selection for the statewide program. A few session norms to make the best use of our time today. Please remain on mute so everyone can hear well. There are going to be opportunities for participation and questions throughout the webinar, and then there's going to be time for questions at the end. If you have a question while we're going through the slides, you can put it in the chat. I cannot guarantee that I will see it, but I'm going to try my best. So our first question is, what is one thing that you hope to gain from today's session? If you could just put a few words, a sentence in the chat, we will see what you guys are expecting today. We will definitely talk about an overview of the process, for sure. Looks like a few people are interested in that. What's next in the process? I'm sure you got an email and you want to know what's next. Definitely go over that. Understanding of the schedule, the different levels, for sure. Yes, you'll definitely hear from someone who has been involved and who has been sitting essentially where you were, although I'm not entirely sure webinars were quite as popular a few years ago. Expectations. We will get to more specific advice on the best way to answer some questions and submit your documents in our next webinar. The Approaching Part 1 webinar that should have been in the email that was sent to you. Today's more of a broad overview, and everything is covered in that guidebook. It was in the chat earlier, and it's on our recognition webpage. I'll put it in the chat again at the end. So it seems like we are all with good expectations of what today is going to cover. So the application process does require time and attention to detail, and there are many benefits to participating in the Tennessee Teacher of the Year process. At the local level, you're recognized and celebrated by colleagues and leaders within your school and your district and your community for all the hard work and the passion that you bring to Tennessee students each and every day. In some communities, school and district Teacher of the Year winners receive recognition and rewards underwritten by local sources. Other districts might have special recognition events for the selected Teachers of the Year. If you are named as one of the 9 region level finalists, you will have the opportunity to serve on the Tennessee Teacher Advisory Council, which is a group of educators from all across the state who utilize their expertise and experience to inform the department's programs and initiatives. Additionally, all 9 finalists are recognized and honored at the annual Educators of Excellence Banquet, which is held in the fall in Nashville. And if you are named as the Tennessee Teacher of the Year, you will have the opportunity to represent Tennessee in the National Teacher of the Year program, which includes a year of all expenses paid travel and professional development opportunities with other state Teachers of the Year from across the country. The Tennessee Teacher of the Year is our representative in the national program. So Tennessee teachers are selected competitively through 5 cycles: school, district, region, grand division, and then state in 3 different grade bands: pre-K through 4, grades 5 through 8, and grades 9 through 12. To participate in the Tennessee Teacher of the Year process, you will first need to be selected as your school and/or district Teacher of the Year representative. Each school and district selects their Teacher of the Year representatives through a unique process, and if you're interested in learning more, please contact your principal or district instructional supervisor. Each district is eligible to nominate 3 educators to participate in the region level selection process, with 1 educator representing each of the 3 grade bands: pre-K through 4, grades 5 through 8, and grades 9 through 12. District nominations were due on January 16th, and notification emails were sent yesterday, January 19th, to all district nominees. So, fun little trivia to see who's been paying attention. Please answer in the chat. You must be nominated at the district level to submit a state level application. True or false? True. You guys are so smart. They say the best students make the best teachers, right? Well done. All right, so after the district level selection is region level selection. For region level, you must complete the part 1 of the application by February 28th to continue to the region level selection process. February 28th. You can find the part 1 application on the Tennessee Teacher of the Year website, as well as in the direct email sent to you by the Tennessee Teacher of the Year coordinator, which is me. The Part 1 application contains basic information about yourself and your school, 3 written response questions, and an optional opportunity to submit up to 5 pages of supporting documentation. After all applications are submitted, regional scoring committees will identify 1 region-level semifinalist in each of the 3 grade bands for each of the 9 regions, for a total of 27 region-level semifinalists. All region-level applicants will be notified of their application decision by March 30th. February 27th. February 27th. For the chat. February 27th. So we will end the region level selection with 27 region level semifinalists across the state representing the 9 regions. If you are selected as a region level semifinalist, the Tennessee Teacher of the Year coordinator, that's me, will provide a Part 2 application to you via email by March 30th. Part 2 applications must be submitted May 1st. The Part 2 application contains the 3 written response questions from Part 1, as well as several additional components. These components include 3 new written response questions, an opportunity to submit additional supporting documentation, professional resume, 3 letters of recommendation, a professional biography, and a professional headshot. If you choose, you may duplicate your responses from the Part 1 application, or you may revise them before submitting the Part 2 application. The entire Part 2 application will be scored by a statewide scoring committee who will identify 1 finalist in each region of the state, for a total of 9 region-level finalists. All applicants will be notified of their application decision by June 1st, 2022. Another question, true or false? There's no overlap between Part 1 and Part 2 of the application. Thanks for participating. Y'all are right, it's false. There is overlap between Part 1 and Part 2, those 3 written response questions, and you can choose to amend them or submit the same ones should you move on to submitting your Part 2. The 9 region level finalists will then compete in an interview. Pending the evolving public health situation, the interview may be held in person or virtually. During this interview, finalists will be asked several questions regarding their professional growth, teaching philosophy, achievements. Additionally, finalists will be asked to share a prepared 2-minute speech on a topic given in advance of the interview. A statewide scoring committee will utilize both the application and interview components to identify one educator to represent each of the East, Middle, and West Grand Divisions, as well as one educator to represent the entire state of Tennessee as the Tennessee Teacher of the Year. These Grand Division finalists and the Teacher of the Year are announced at the Fall Excellence in Education event in Nashville. The Tennessee Teacher of the Year will then move on to represent Tennessee in the National Teacher of the Year program administered by the Council for Chief State School Officers. And now it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you guys to the 2020-2021 Teacher of the Year, Ms. Cammie Lunsford, to tell you about her experiences with the Teacher of the Year program. So Cammie, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, where you teach, benefits of the program, any advice to prospective applicants, that would be great. Cammie?
I see her, but she is still on mute.
Of course I am.
There she is.
So there you have it. I was just going on and on about how you all are superhumans and that I was super happy when she asked at the beginning, when Lauren said, what are you hoping to get out of today? I was hoping to see 38. I see 38 or so folks that are really, really amazing teachers, that you've been really killing it out there in the field, of Tennessee's finest, 38 of Tennessee's finest who are looking at me on the camera today. So thank you for everything that you're doing. If you're not being told you're superhuman, you are, and you are appreciated. So that's what I was saying. And then our Tennessee Teacher of the Year didn't have her mute off. So there you go. It happens. My experience with this whole process, do you want me to talk about, I guess, more about the after the Tennessee Teacher of the Year part?
Sure. I feel like I've maybe scared everyone with the interviews and the questions.
Yeah.
So the good part.
Okay, yeah. So being on the TAC is pretty amazing because you're with 9 folks from across the regions, and you get to have those conversations, some really deep and meaningful conversations about a lot of the things that are going on. I'm the 2020-2021 teacher, so there's been a lot going on during the time that I have served. So that's been really beneficial, and we've forged a lot of really great relationships. But professional development, great. As far as the Tennessee side, the Teacher Advisory Council. And also just sort of connecting and learning more about what goes on with legislation and policy and the Tennessee Department of Education. That's one of the biggest benefits I think I got from that experience on the Tennessee side. The CCSSO, the big long acronym that I can't even tell you what it stands for, is the National Teacher of the Year program, and that includes, like, if you get Tennessee Teacher of the Year, you're going to be going and doing a lot of professional development with teachers all over the United States and beyond, really. Some of my closest friends now are teachers all over the United States, one in the Northern Mariana Islands and one in Guam and one in American Samoa. So, and you get to do a lot like what's going on with the Teacher Advisory Council, but then it's on a national level. And so you're finding out what's going on, what are the trends, what are the needs happening in Oklahoma and in Washington State and in California, and really get to explore and reflect on teaching practices that honestly I don't think I would have ever gotten the chance to do outside of this program. Is that good?
That was great. Thank you, Cami. We're so glad to have Cami as one of our Tennessee Teachers of the Year. Unfortunately, Morgan couldn't be with us today, but I think, Cami, you've done a great job. So now we will open it up to any questions anyone has for me, for Cami, about the application, anything that we can answer. I'm going to go ahead and put that guidebook in the chat one more time in case you missed it. If anyone has any questions, you can chat them. You can come off of mute.
Hi there. I was curious about if any of the application process is different for those 3 grade bands.
No, that's a good question, though. The application questions are all the same, regardless of which grade band you fall into, regardless of which content area you teach. They'll all be the same, and they are scored blindly. So our scorers do not know who you are or where you are from while they're reviewing your application. Another question, what do you think is the most important part of the application process? That's a great question. I would say, well, and this is coming from a former English teacher myself, I would say it's the reflection, and it's the feeling and the generosity that you put forth in your responses. So the first part is simply some questions, and then you have the chance to attach other documentation if you want to. It's great to get to know all of our applicants and know what they're passionate about and what they enjoy about teaching. It has been a really hard year, but we are here to support you and to help you. So just make yourself and present yourself to us, and we are happy to learn more about you.
I was gonna second that with authenticity. So yeah, absolutely, authenticity, especially in your reflections, and especially if you get to the interview process.
And I wanted to hop in and just say that before I was with the educator effectiveness team, I worked in the core offices, and core offices have been heavily involved in the past in looking at these applications. So before I was even involved in this part of the process, I had been a scorer. And that application is what you have to share with your scores. They are seeking as much insight into what you think and feel and believe about and the passion you have about the teaching profession. So I'm with Lauren, that reflective piece is super important. One of the questions that may come up, and I may be kind of jumping the gun here for this particular part of the application, we get questions about the interview itself and like how much does that weigh in? Again, we can't redact those, obviously, so that the reviewers know who they're talking to at that point, but I think it's the same thing. It's that honest reflection of what's happening with you in your space and time, and how that reflects on teaching and the way you feel about it. So it's the reflective nature, and as Cami said, the authenticity of that reflection.
And I see we have a question about which carries the most weight. There is no part of the application that is heavily weighted, and there's no part that is just so minuscule. They're all taken into consideration holistically as we look at these. Another question, if you've already submitted part 1, that is a great question, because I've seen a couple of part 1s come in, and I love that you guys are excited. If you have submitted part 1 and you are fine with your responses, you are welcome to leave it as it is. If you have submitted part 1 and you would like to change it, you are welcome to do that as well. I'm going to put my email in the chat, and just send me an email and let me know, and I will take out your prior submission so that you can resubmit. Anything else you guys are wondering today? There is not a scoring rubric shared with applicants. There is a word limit though, and I would like to remind you of the word limit. It will be on the application. Your application will be submitted electronically. In the email that I sent out yesterday, there was a link to a Word doc. That is for your records. If you want to type your responses there, look at them over time, anything like that, save it in case you want to use the same responses for part 2. That is up to you. But if you don't submit it electronically, I don't have a copy of it. So if you do work on the Word doc, just make sure you copy and paste it over.
I have a question.
Yes.
If you have, is evidence the same as supporting documentation? Is evidence included in those 500 words, or is evidence included in supporting documentation?
So evidence, when we ask about evidence in regard to answering the prompts, that's simply saying, you know, instead of I led a club of engineering students, it's giving more information about what that looks like. What kind of club? When did you meet? How many people were there? The supporting documents, that is up to you, and it is a 5-page limit. So we ask that you do stick to that 5-page limit.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Miss Judy Cummings, do you have your hand up?
Yes, today is the first time I've seen the additional things for part 2. So it was helpful, but is there a way you can send that to us? Because I don't want to confuse anything or say something that's redundant.
So everything, yes, ma'am.
You know what I'm saying? I just saw some questions that were different for part 2 than they were for part 1. And, you know, in case I was to get to that level, I would like to be sure that I had some, I don't know. It just seemed like I should like to look over those, but just in case.
I understand. I'm going to send the link to the Tennessee Teacher of the Year website that outlines the dates and all of the links for anything you could ever need. I would bookmark it. I think it's a great resource. And just come back to that. In part 2, if you want to change things, you can. The part 2 scorers will not be the same people who reviewed your part 1. So they won't say, oh, I already know about Dinosaur Club or fill in the blank. It will be fresh eyes for that. Links to videos. Martha, thoughts on links to videos for part 1?
We do provide digital copies of applications so that if the links are live, the scorers will have access to those.
And in terms of what can be used for documentation, if you want to include pictures from your classroom, if you want to include sample work, if you want that's redacted, if you want to include any, it's up to you. Whatever's going to support you so that we get a better idea of who you are and we can help celebrate you as well.
If it helps tell your story, that's a piece of evidence that you want to add. And I would also suggest that you let some other people help you look at your story and make sure that you're telling your story. It's easy to get very humble at a time when it is appropriate to share what you have been doing that is so spectacular, because you're all doing spectacular things. So let the people who know help you identify those things and put those out there for your scorers to see. Cammie, do you have any thoughts on that particular comment?
I was laughing. I was muted, but I was giggling because I was going down memory lane, and Martha was telling me at one point, "Girl, you gotta put yourself out there." So I'm not kidding. You all are the best teachers that Tennessee has ever had. So go ahead and take the time to toot your own horn. Yeah. If it's a picture, if it's a video, and it might not, you might not think it means a lot to somebody else. And I think that might be what Martha's saying. Get somebody else to take a look at it. Because you never know. But I would definitely, anything that you can pull together to do that, for sure.
Right. You guys we have your contact information only because your district said these are our best people. So we're excited to learn more about you and learn about your classrooms and the impact that you have on students. Supporting documents could be information that is different. It could be additional. Personally, and this is my own person, I would do something different just so you can use more of your space. If you have things where you're writing about it in one of your questions and you wanted to include something supplemental, maybe you made a brochure for something, or your students made a brochure or something like that to really add to the depth. It's up to you, and a pre-K teacher is going to be very different probably from a senior teacher in terms of what can be included. So coming from secondary, I will let you younger people, teachers, take your best guess there.
Also, you can include data and you can include growth, but don't think that that's the only thing somebody wants to see, because we know as teachers that's not the only thing we do. So definitely think outside the box on that too as well.
I think that's a really important statement, Cammie. I mean, test results, we do want to see our students progress towards state goals. We also want to see our students shine in the ways that they shine as human beings, regardless of which content area is. And each of you do things to allow your students to shine. That's the story you want to tell. And that may be some of the things that you want to share with the scoring committee. And for the record, we are not the scoring committee. None of us are going to have our hands on these.
And I think that also goes for supporting documentation and your reflections when it comes to thinking outside the box and trying to capture a picture of who you are as a teacher.
I have a question. So I assume that so many people have been involved with education, obviously multiple years when they're in this process, and perhaps even in different grade bands. I understand the importance of the grade band that you're representing, and perhaps even the year. At what point is it appropriate to, at least if it's representing our story, to include stories of the different grade levels we represented that are outside of that band, or even the different roles? I started as a parapro when I first started education in high school, but I'm representing the pre-K through 4 grade levels for my district. So at what point is that information going from, I feel like, this entry-level position to where I am now appropriate? Because I do think I am proud of the growth that I've had, et cetera, but where is it appropriate to still represent the grade band, but that's part of the story as well, if that makes sense?
I think that's a good question. I would say don't exclude your current position, but you are welcome to include the history as well. So if you, let's say you started, if our grade bands are pre-K to 4, 5 to 8, and 9 to 12, let's say you started as a 7th grade teacher and now you are a 4th grade teacher, which would be 2 separate grade bands. Feel free to mention 7th grade and the middle schoolers and all the fun you had there, but also mention your current position in the 4th grade, maybe what drew you to 4th grade or what you thought of 4th grade or something you've done with 4th grade. So don't feel limited to this year. Don't feel limited to pandemic years, but do give us a good overview of who you are as a teacher. If you are submitting videos or any information with student identifying information like their faces, please do refer to your district guidelines and your student privacy policies that are already in place. In terms of a time limit for the video, we don't have an official time limit. However, keep in mind that your audience is viewing probably multiple applications, so you don't want to be so long that someone loses interest or is watching, the entire staging of A Midsummer Night's Dream in 7th grade. Maybe just find a good scene. I say that because that's what I have taught it. I don't have any recordings, unfortunately. Missed opportunity there. But think about your audience. I think Martha's position of talking to people to get your story is really great. Think about what would intrigue other people, what would draw them in, what would help them be a cheerleader for you even more. Another question is, the state level data such as individual growth that includes information is to remain confidential, okay to include since it's going to the State Department? I would take out any identifying information for students. You can say, I typically grow students 3 Lexile levels or whatever through a year, and maybe include some things there, but please don't send us anything that has student ID numbers or student first name and last name, a class roster, anything like that. Other questions? Things you're wondering?
I think it's my last question. Sorry. I think I know the answer, but I thought I'd at least ask. Would we be informed if our application was not being considered due to a violation of something? If that makes sense, hey, you have pictures, or you exceed the word limit. I'm not sure. I think I know the answer would be you didn't follow the limit. There's no notification. You're not considered. I don't think you would have, but I thought I'd at least ask.
Martha, you look like you're poised to.
So if we were to call an applicant in the redaction process and realize that there was student PII, personally identifiable information on students, I think what we would do is reach out and say, this has been included. We cannot share this. But we would not, you would not be given an opportunity to resubmit an application. So please be very careful in what you're doing. But if we have to pull something from an application, we'll let you know. I will say that I don't recall ever having to eliminate an application because of some piece of evidence that was added. We also don't publish these. So we're not taking your applications and then, sending them onto the World Wide Web or anything like that for your local news media to pick up. So but should somehow information be released, we wouldn't want to put any students in jeopardy. And Marcia asked a question about state level data such as individual growth. If you elect to share your data with someone, that is your choice. I will not share your data with someone, but if you create an application with your own data in it and you share that to whoever is going to see it, you are making a decision to share your data. So that would be your choice.
Thank you.
Those are great questions, James. You can even ask more if you want. There's no limit.
Agreed.
Other things we're wondering?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm in a high school and I'm doing hall duty. They're decorating for the pep rally. So if you hear them, I apologize. But so being in the high school, I teach, I'm ELA, but I teach 4 different content areas. Is it best to focus on one or to show the depth and the breadth and the heights my soul can reach with them? Or does that make sense?
It does. It does. I would say focus on what you feel like tells your story the best. If you all probably, I don't know all 30 something of you personally, but I'm going to guess that you are marvelous and inspiring and warm and you have great connections with your students. I would focus on those qualities more than individual classes. And if that means discussing in one of your responses an individual class, then that supports those qualities. But I wouldn't think I need to talk about all of the things I have taught or all of the things I am teaching. It is less about the content, the number of students, things like that. It's more about who you are and what kind of an excellent, wonderful teacher you are.
Yeah, it's more about philosophy and the reason why you're at 5:06 Eastern time sitting outside a hallway during homecoming. So, yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Cami, as a teacher of the year that has been all over the country, all over our state doing things, even sometimes just virtually, I realize we have not always traipsed across the state during your tenure. How many times have you been asked to discuss your growth and/or achievement data?
Well, first of all, I'm a music teacher, so never. I'm just kidding. I had to say it. But that's y'all get what she's saying. They're not worried about that when they're talking to you about your philosophy of education, or when I'm doing a television interview, or when I'm asked to speak at a conference, or when I'm in a small group. That has never come up in a question. Is that what you mean?
I have zero doubt that the people that are on this webinar right now have data that would prove beyond a shadow of doubt effectiveness in multitudes of ways. That's almost a given at this point. What I am continuing to encourage is that you tell your story, and the data is part of that story. The data is not the story.
Yeah. And also, I mean, as far as who's looking at the applications, you know, you might have someone that is a seasoned teacher or a lifelong educator or someone with the Tennessee Department of Education or ... But you also might have someone who absolutely has no idea what the acronym for TBOS stands for. And so it wouldn't do any good, if that makes sense. So
Do I hear you correctly in saying that like people who might be reviewing it they don't know the teacher lingo? Is that what you're saying? Like how do you write for just more of a generic people to understand your application and what you're writing?
I guess what I'm saying is, and Martha can speak more to this, that there might be someone who's, like say you're elementary and you all have a different set of scores, like nicknames or acronyms for those scores in elementary, and a high school, a seasoned retired high school teacher, maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure. But if they're looking at it, they're not going to know what that stands for or what those things are necessarily. That doesn't mean that they're not valuable and that you shouldn't include them when you're talking in one of your paragraphs about how you grew a group that was really hard from one year to the next or something like that. But it's that growth and that story of that growing that is more important than we got a 1.79777 on a, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Yeah. Because they might not know, they might not understand, but then they'll get it from the story. Yeah.
And you know, everyone is an expert on education because we've all been educated. So that everybody has a certain amount of expertise when it comes to how their teacher's classroom or their student's classroom works and those kind of things. So our scores they are chosen because they have an expertise. They are not chosen because they have an expertise in TVOS inherently or in I don't know. Nothing is coming to me.
ELL. If there's anybody on the call that's ELL, you're like, you have things we don't know about.
So it's not that they have a specific expertise in a specific data set, but they do have expertise in education. So for example, we might use college professors that support educator prep programs. We might use retired instructional supervisors. You know, there's a variety of people that have a variety of touches on. We've used retired directors of schools, people like that have touches into education, but may or may not have expertise in a specific grade band or a specific subset of students. Did that answer the question? My mother was a teacher and she would build you a clock to tell you what time it is, and I might resemble that.
All right, as we're coming up, did I see another hand raised? Any other hands, questions before I switch to the next slide? For one more time, I'm going to put the guidebook in the chat. I'm going to put the recognition website in the chat. Everything's on the website. If there's one thing to bookmark to come back later, I would say it is the website. And then my email address. Questions that might come up.
I have one more question for Ms. Lunsford. Are you on social media at all?
Did you just say Miss Lunsford?
I did.
I was like, wait a minute. I lost where I was for a moment there. Am I on social media at all? Yes.
In terms of use it for like your Teacher of the Year platform or post things that you are studying or learning about in that kind of way?
Yes, but now because Morgan is the new Tennessee Teacher of the Year, so it's a little bit of a different situation, but I do have some, yeah.
Okay.
All right, and we do have office hours weekly on Wednesdays from 3 to 4 p.m. Central. That link was in the email. If you need it again, send me an email and I'm happy to send it to you. So if you have questions that come up, if you're not sure about something, if you want a link to be checked. I did see a question, I don't think I answered it, about QR codes in the supporting documents. And Martha has stated that some of our reviewers are retired teachers. They might not be as savvy as those of us who have taught small people through a computer. So keep in mind that QR codes might be complicated, is what I'm trying to say. And if you want someone to look at something, it might be best to just put a link, maybe a click here and the link.
We do norm with our scores and we do support them. So Lauren, that might be something that we want to like tag in our, hey, if you come across a QR code, this is how you do it. Feel free to reach out, but we'll support.
We will help you guys. We will help everyone as much as we can. We are not as superhuman as you are, but we try to be. Office hours, you are welcome to just show up. So I will open up that link and sit in an empty Teams meeting by myself if I need to and answer questions as they come. And if that time doesn't work for you, you're welcome to email me and we can set up another time to chat through something. The Word doc, I believe it's on the website. I think it's linked on the website right before the link to the actual online submission page. If you would like to participate in the chat one more time to answer, what next step are you going to take in order to prepare? Meet locally, that's a great idea. Meet up with some other teachers, maybe meet with your district. Why did you nominate me? Why do you think I'm great at this? Looking over your response prompts, reviewing the documents, thinking about what it is. Peer review is a great idea. 499 words. Supervisor, these are all great things. Writing. Maybe reaching out to your writing friends if you are not as familiar with the writing. Drafting, talk to your students. These are all great ideas, and I'm so glad you guys have shared them with each other as well.
And don't hesitate to attend office hours. It won't be, the largest difference between office hours and today is there won't be a slide deck. It'll just be us chatting through things and maybe pulling up resources. So we are very, I think, friendly, conversational, happy to spend time with you, happy to support you. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Absolutely. We want you guys to submit the best application that you can. We want it to be really hard for our reviewers to pick a difference between the different ones because we know they're all really great. We do have a survey for some feedback from today's slide deck. If you would take that quick survey, that would be great. We'll go ahead and stop the recording, and if you guys want to hang out and ask any more questions, need any links to anything, please let us know. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday, a wonderful Friday, and please let's keep in touch.
And if I may also say, be proud. I know it's really hard right now while you see your coworkers out there working as hard as you were doing, to take credit for being amazing. When you know you're not the only one, right? But you were chosen as leaders in your building and in your districts, and it's a big deal. So.
You are representing all of them, so go for it.
Thank you all so much for your time.